So mindset number one is probably just take off the cool jacket, and we got to stop overthinking. So cool jacket would be like, I'm not playing games. If I'm free, I'm going to reply. If I'm not free, I'm going to reply when I am free. Okay? None of the games.
Now you're looking at dating, and especially online dating, and saying this sucks. And then your whole mindset towards dating is negative. Versus if you go into online dating expecting disappointment, expecting that 80% of these people are not going to go anywhere.
Listen, guys, I want to start here because I actually love the timing of this because you guys are like a week or so out of the Heart of Dating conference.
Yeah.
Just give me your flyover before we take the deep dive of the landscape of the dating scene today. Like, what did you guys see coming into the conference, the felt needs, with the blind spots, the misconceptions, like biopsy conference as a case study for maybe even today's conversation?
You know, it's interesting. I think a lot of people come to conference with the expectation of they're going to meet their person. And we try to market it as, yeah, you might meet somebody. There are going to be people there that are eligible, but come in to be with the Lord and connect with him in this heartbreak and this loneliness and this disappointment of singleness. And that's what they end up leaving with more than anything, though some matches do happen. But what I always call them out for, the ladies, I always call them out because they're always looking at the room, counting how many girls to guys. So, you know, one big felt, I think, need overall going into conference, at conference, and outside of conference is the idea that there aren't as many, not the idea, but the actual fact that there's not as many single Christian guys in the church. And that's a fact at the moment compared to single women. So that is a reality. Now, some communities that may feel more balanced, but in most churches across America, there are more single women. And so
it's actually, it's actually always been that way. The church has always leaned more female since the early church, because it's been the safest place for women historically since the early church. And 70-30 is roughly the demographic for male female or female to male. That's always kind of been that way.
Yeah. What did you see going in, babe?
As far as the trend going in, I think overall people are looking for connection over content. We're definitely in a place where you can get great content from just about anywhere, YouTube and podcasts. We are actually really fortunate. Like Deb gave a talk, Deb Falater, who we're all a huge fan of. She came and did a talk. Yeah. We actually, the only reason why we had her was because we told our audience at the end of our interview with her to just go blow her up on Instagram. And if she gets enough DMs, then we're going to book her. And they just absolutely lit her up. But she didn't know that. So she's
like, Kait, JJ, why are all these people DMing me from your podcast?
So she gave a keynote that she's only given once in the past 8 years about singleness and sex, which was amazing. But that's really rare to get that kind of experience as far as like a content perspective. And so we really, really deformalized this conference. There was how many breakout sessions? 20?
I think they're 12, but yes, 12 different breakouts across the 2 days.
One keynote, and then a bunch of kind of like Q&A, sit-down interview.
Yeah.
And just tons of built-in flex time for people to just simply connect in the hallway.
Like we had this room where you could just play games, like and mingle their tables. So if you were just like done with content for a moment, you know, some people don't thrive with the water hose of content for 2 days straight. And so especially singles, they're there to meet other singles, right? And so we created that space, and, you know, people just really want to be in person. I mean, we have seen the downtrend of online events, and we are an online ministry. We connect all over the world, but people want to be in person now post COVID.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
You know,
and that's another trend. People don't want to meet on a dating app. They want to meet in real life.
Really?
Yes, big time.
Do you think that's a generational thing? Like, okay, so I remember when eHarmony first came out, it was the only dating platform. It was predominantly Christian, Neil Clark Warren, and it's not that way today. Do you think it's a generational shift, or like what do you guys think? Is it just singles in general saying, I actually don't know if I'm going to get catfished, I don't know what I'm going to get? What do you think?
There's a couple different things. First and foremost, it's pretty interesting. Probably by age and decade, the experience changes. So, for example, dating in your 40s and 50s online, there's actually a significant chance if you match, you actually go out on a phone call date, a FaceTime date, or an in-person date. There's not a lot of games. Whether it's maturity, whatever it might be, you go on Christian Mingle, that's a popular one for the, middle-aged singles.
What's the one that we know someone on? Christian Cafe.
Christian Cafe, another popular one.
That's 60 plus, but yeah.
So it's really interesting. It's just much more easygoing, casual. You match, you go on a date. As you get younger in your 20s and 30s, it's amazing how many more games there are, how many more people are just coming for, window shopping is what we call it, or validation and self-esteem boost. And it really is this kind of crazy phenomena of, this is crazy. If you match with 10 people, you're actually going to go out on a date off the app with about 20% of them. So 2 of 10 matches. Keep this in mind. You both are matching with each other, saying, I would go on a date with you totally. And 2 of those actually end up on a date. And then from there, you have about a 15% chance to go on a second date from a first date. So people are just kind of fatigued, man. Like, they're tired of playing the games. They're tired of matching into oblivion, swiping into oblivion, having pen pals for months and years on end, following each other on Instagram after you match on Hinge and never really anything coming out of it. So that was accelerated by COVID. A really good example, I work in e-commerce and Amazon for my side job. COVID accelerated e-commerce shopping habits. So there's more people shopping on Amazon, Instacart at a rate of like 5 years. So meaning it was like a 2028 kind of rate of adoption in 2022, 2023. It was the same thing for dating apps. It was just this over accelerated adoption. People got really tired of it really fast. And now it's just kind of like probably led by Gen Z and some millennials. You meet at a run club, you meet doing hobbies, you meet in real life. And that's kind of like that return to the trad, old-fashioned. You're seeing that in a lot of ways.
The trad trend.
Yes, my sister and I were just talking about that. I want to stay there, JJ. I want to stay on that phrase window shopping because this is interesting. And this might be a gross generalization, so forgive me, folks, if this is. I'm just trying to explore this. Are we in a generational crisis of emotional maturity, or are people actually struggling to find quality partners? Here's what I mean. Seems like people are afraid to commit. Everyone's got trust issues. Hookup culture is bleeding into the church. What's your take on that? I'm just intrigued by the phrase window shopping and what is exacerbating that experience.
Yeah. I would say, it's interesting because I think, Chris, though, yes and no, because I think we're also in a point where people are more interested in growth than ever before. I think therapy is like very normal. You see people now almost looking for it as a non-negotiable on a dating app. It's like, do they go to therapy and are they willing to put that on their profile? And so that in the last 5, 6, 7 years, I feel like has just become so normalized, maybe because in COVID, we all needed it and were hit with something we never thought we would be hit with. And we were more lonely, depressed, all of those things. And so I do see that people are more willing to grow than ever before. And I totally hear you. It is a dumpster fire out there. It is wild. It is crazy. And I think that's more driven by the technology of our society and the lack of in-person connection and in-person asking out, and how easy it is to just get anything we want when we want it and text a goodbye or not text a goodbye. Like, we can literally break up with somebody with a few words. We don't even have to call them anymore, or we could just ghost them. I mean, I don't ever recommend that, but because of that, it's just these things have become more and more normal. We're more connected and yet disconnected, right? And I'm not the first person to say that. So I think it's like yes and no. People are more willing to grow and admit that they maybe have some issues. And I think that they're still not willing to look at how they've maybe bought into this consumerist mentality of the phone usage and technology that is rampant right now. And, it's similar in the church. It's like, unfortunately, I wish that I could say confidently as a dating coach, and we do coach tons of Christian singles hungry to learn and grow. And a lot of the situations we're still seeing are unfortunately very heartbreaking in terms of a lot of people just won't give each other a shot.
So what's behind the ghosting though? Is it gosh, I hate to even say it this way. Is it time for singles to be a little more ruthless in dating? Like, do we stop giving people the benefit of the doubt? Do we need to level up in emotional maturity? Do we need to be clear? Do we need to be, I mean, listen, I know everyone's temperaments and communication styles are different, so I'm not at all trying to make a blanket statement, but do we start making quicker, harsher cuts when we see red flags? How do we navigate through the reflex to ghost and to play games and to not be forthright?
Do you want to go for that?
Yeah, I mean, so you're single. I'll probably ask you first. Have you ever ghosted?
No, I've not.
That's actually so impressive.
No. No, you know why? Is because I just wouldn't want to sit and think, well, shoot, I'm playing games with. I just don't like the guise of emotional manipulation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. And you've ghosted, Kate?
Yeah, my most unhealthy back in the day, for sure.
Yeah, and I've ghosted for sure. I've been ghosted, been the ghostee.
Ghosting, that's a fun word.
Yeah, I know. I've been on both sides.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny is even after being ghosted by someone else and hating it and not appreciating, I'll still turn around and do the same thing in my unhealthiest place of dating. You know, I really think dating is responsibility and a privilege. And if you don't have a character that is mature enough for that responsibility and privilege, you're going to leave a lot of people worse than you found them, you know, in your dating life. That's why for us, dating, one of the easiest rules for dating, if I had to teach my 14-year-old daughter, who's not going to be allowed to anyway, until she's 40, and I'm in my nursing home, you know. Look, the golden rule, the easiest way, since it's not addressed in the Bible, is leave everyone better than you found them. Mm-hmm. It's just so easy, whether it's one date, you match on an app, you've been on 10 dates, you've been dating for 10 months, and you're not going to get married and break off the engagement. Like, obviously, there's going to be pain, but if you just simply go into that is your chief goal, that is your number one guiding force. I'm going to leave them better than I found them. Well, it's impossible not to ghost.
Can I add something to that, though, on the opposite side?
You're going to sound smarter.
No. I'm actually poking at it. No, I think
I had a good mic drop moment. So.
No, it was a really good one. And that is our main primary thing in dating. Leave them better than you found them. And I do want to clarify something about ghosting, Chris, because I think it's a good clarification. Okay. Because we kind of define what ghosting is. Because all these terms, like everyone has their own definition, right? Like dating, it's a catch-all term that means I went on one date and or I'm 6 months in a very committed relationship looking at engagement with this person. Could mean the same thing, right? So ghosting, though, I personally like to say that ghosting is when someone has made plans with you or met you, and then after that, you never hear from them again. So, for example, you go on a date with somebody. You've actually now met them in real time. And then after the date, you never hear from them again. That's ghosting, 100%. Or if you met and then you were texting and then they said they wanted to take you on a second date, but then they just dropped off the face of the planet, never followed up on that second date. That's ghosting, right? What ghosting, in my opinion, is you connect on a dating app, you exchange a few words, and then you never hear from them again. Because here's the thing, it's just a person on the internet at that point. Now we all are brothers and sisters in Christ. Like, we should treat each other with love and kindness. But I see this from the perspective of, like, online dating is the lowest stakes in all of dating. If they have not asked you out, if you have not gone on a FaceTime date, if you've only exchanged a few words and you don't hear from them anymore, truthfully, it's probably because they're busy, they forgot something. They don't actually know you yet. Like, you're just somebody on the internet, right? Until they've actually met you, that's when it's like, oh, okay, I know this person and I need to treat them kindly. I mean, if the definition of ghosting was somebody forgets to respond back, I would be a ghoster 100%.
Or chooses not to
because
respond.
I do that accidentally all of the time because I can't prioritize every single thing or my brain will explode.
So what I hear you saying, just to create a through line for folks, is context really matters.
Yes.
Intent really matters.
Yes.
And the communication leading up to that point, whatever that point is, informs and defines what that is. That's sort of what I hear you saying, yeah?
Yeah, it's kind of like that scale of, like, are you really entitled to a conversation here or not?
Oh, dude.
Right.
That's good,
You
JJ.
know, like,
yes, sir.
Hey, if you're engaged, obviously you're entitled to a healthy conversation here. If you think about that spectrum, as you get to know someone, there's time and consistency, relational equity built. You're engaged. Obviously, that warrants lots of conversations versus 10 messages on a dating app.
I think that's an important clarification too, because the mindset around dating is paramount. So if you, for example, go into online dating where people would claim the majority of ghosting happens from online dating, well, if you just match with someone and exchange a few sentences and then you don't hear from them, if you call that ghosting has a very negative connotation. It's not a great or kind thing to do. So if you're like, I just get ghosted over and over and over, now you're looking at dating and especially online dating and saying this sucks. And then your whole mindset towards dating is negative. Versus if you go into online dating expecting disappointment, expecting that 80% of these people are not going to go anywhere, you, instead of being so massively disappointed that could potentially lead to despair, you instead are kind of like, yeah, okay, well, I kind of expected that.
Right. Your expectation lines up with reality.
Your expectation lines up with reality. And with online dating, especially, we got to put it as the lowest expectations. You still can meet amazing people online, but you have to put it such a low expectation that it's like, you should not have the same expectation as somebody you meet on a dating app as a leader of your Bible study at your church, or the worship leader at your church, because you literally don't know that person on the internet yet. Right. So let's not hold them to the same expectation when we really don't know them at all.
I know for the listeners, the heartbeat is if we want to honor Jesus in our relationships and we want him to be honored in everything we do, that means we got to get right. We got to handle dating, the prospecting with integrity, with character. That's the core motivation here. So let's get right into the tactical of this. Take us into, Kate, like you've talked about this a bunch, dropping the hanky, sliding into the DMs. How do you gauge initial text conversations, the pace of it? What's too far? How do you avoid getting friend zoned? Take us into that, guys. What do you tell your clients?
Let's talk about the girl side and then the guy side. Sound good?
Sure.
Okay. So I will say, girls, you need to drop the hanky now more than ever. Guys have no clue that you're interested. Oh, drop the hanky means you got to show them interest. It's an old Victorian term where the ladies back in the day would be at a ball and they would see the fine gentleman that they would probably never get the opportunity to talk to. He'd be like a duke or something. And she would make eye contact with him and then drop her handkerchief just, casually. And he would come running over to get it for her because he's a gentleman. And she'd be like, oh, wow, thank you. And then they would start a conversation. And so it's her way of getting him to notice her and getting him to see like, oh, hey, I want you to come and talk to me. And so that's what it is. It's like, hey, let him know you exist and that you're open to potentially dating him. Today, guys are more clueless than ever because we don't have, like I said earlier, enough in-person interactions to even know that the girl is interested. I mean, guys don't ask girls out in person as much. It's usually over the DMs and over text. And so they're just clueless. They are not picking up on things and they're more fearful because it is kind of intimidating, especially if you're going to ask out in person. Guys are a little freaked out. They're like, is this girl in my church community going to tell her 10 girlfriends in her group or her small group? Is there going to be screenshots of my conversation in the girls group thread? Like they're kind of slightly terrified. So we need to have more accountability there on the lady side. But
can I interject real fast?
Yeah, go ahead.
And then, because this is interesting because I know what you're talking about. And I think back in my grandpa used to say this. Back in our day, he'd say, we'd walk up to a girl and say, you're really beautiful. Can I take you out on a date?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yet I talk to many guys today who are like, I think a lot of women, maybe in their perception only, are like, that actually freaks me out. Is that a wrong read on the situation? What's your take and your advice on exactly that situation?
So the guys think that the girls would be freaked out by that.
Mm-hmm. Yo, bro, back it down.
No, I think that girls want clarity. Now, if it's a guy who's asking that to every girl and he has a reputation, then they're like, yeah, no. Okay. But, and there are those out there. It's like, a machine gun. It's like, no, okay, let's go to the next one. But no, girls want clarity at this point. Girls are like, all we do all day is hyperanalyze. Is he made these eyes at me? He lingered in conversation. He said this over text. Does he like me? Does he not? I mean, that's guys at guys' nights are not analyzing those things. Girls at girls' nights, that's all they do.
Because we have hobbies.
This is sort of turning into that old Mel Gibson movie, What Women Want. And I actually love it, though, because it's super helpful to be able to kind of get under the hood, so to speak, and say, actually, help us understand so that we can be more effective in actually not only the pursuit, but the honor, the respect, and the intentionality in the communication.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think just at the end of the day, we can all acknowledge, like in our DNA, women, no matter how successful, boss babe, masculine in the past 50 years, don't care. At the end of the day, we've never met a woman who doesn't want to be pursued. Haven't met one.
Will you say that again, JJ? That is critical. Gentlemen, if you're listening, I want you to rewind 15 seconds and listen to my brother.
I don't even remember what I said now. At the end of the day, a boss babe, ultra awesome, Proverbs 31 woman, which we underestimate, by the way. It's not some submissive. It's a strong leader, awesome woman. If they're a boss, they don't really want, I guess, let's say this. They don't need a man, but they want one. And at the end of the day, we've never met a woman who doesn't want to be pursued. Like, it just, at the end of the day, a woman wants to be cherished and pursued. And you know what's funny? At the end of the day, every man finds equal delight and joy in pursuing and chasing a woman. Because we're built for it.
And the ladies that are going to reject that are lying to themselves about, they're stuck in some sort of, I can do it myself, I don't need somebody. And, but underneath it, almost any type of those girls that I do coach, they still want to be pursued. They just have this hard exterior because they've had to do it themselves and build things for themselves and make it their name known for themselves and all these things. So they're kind of like hardened, or maybe they've been really burned by men. And so, but the right woman is going to appreciate the clarity of a man coming up to her and saying, hey, I find you really interesting, or I've really enjoyed conversation with you. I'd love to get to know you better. Would you want to go on a date sometime?
Yeah.
She's going to be like, oh my gosh, he was clear.
Gentlemen, if you're listening, what Kate said, that is your transcript. That is clear. That's specific. It's intentional. It communicates meaning and intent. Kate, what I hear you saying in a way is, speaking of women, I mean, men deal with this too, right? We are all faced with the opportunity to throw off the cloak of self-protection in favor of transparency and vulnerability that will potentially lead to intimacy. But we are habituated by our postmodern, post-Christian, post-truth, secular humanistic culture that says self-protect, self-promote, and it all comes from a fear and shame motivation. Let's connect these two ideas and just take us into the tactical. Throwing off the cloak of self-protection, entering the space of interest and intentionality requires what? And then through that example, teach us how to gauge and interact, whether it be, as I said, sliding into the DMs initiating communication. How do we do this well at the very first gate?
Yeah, I think the big thing, and when, years ago when I was on the podcast with you, I probably talked about this, when it comes to rejection, we have to face our fears of rejection, because when we put ourselves out there, either gender, there's an opportunity that we will maybe get, turned down. And if the reality of us maybe getting turned down is going to crush our souls or speak so many lies to us, then we probably shouldn't do it. It actually is a cue that, hey, let's work on that a little bit more first, because you have to know inherently who you are, whose you are, and be rooted in that before you go out and put yourself out there. Because otherwise you're going to downward spiral into what oh, they didn't like me or they're not interested. Okay, what does that say about me? And is that reinforce every negative lie I've already believed about myself? So when we coach people in this, especially in our mentorship program, School of Dating, we talk about Godfidence. It's such a cheesy word, but it's powerful. Godly confidence of that's deeply, innately formed and fashioned in us. It's how God uniquely formed and fashioned you. You do not have to be any other person but yourself. So going into putting yourself out there, when we coach people, it's like, hey, have that confidence list of at minimum 10 things. You need to read that over because you might be rejected. Okay. And sometimes it's helpful for some people to accept that reality in advance. Like, hey, this might happen. Are you going to be destroyed if that happens?
Right.
If yes, don't do it. We need to do some more work there. But you read that list, you go in, and you're ultimately saying, hey, I'm trying to participate in my dating journey. You can sit there and complain about how you're single all you want and how no guys ask you out as a female, or you can say, you know what? I'm going to start participating in this journey of my dating life. I'm not going to expect a man to read my mind. I'm going to put myself out there, which requires vulnerability. There is risk to it. There's the risk of rejection, but it's worth it because you're challenging yourself to do something you're maybe not comfortable with, and B, you'll never know unless you know. So you got to put yourself out there. I coached a girl a few months ago. Man, this is heartbreaking. She was under the impression that girls could not tell a guy they were interested and that they just had to wait because the guy really needs to be the one that says it first. So she ended up, Chris, in a multi-year friendationship with a guy. Friendationship meaning it's a friendship that feels like a relationship where one or both people actually have feelings, but she never really clarified her feelings and that she wanted to be more than friends. So she was stuck in this friendationship. Then he walks into church one day engaged. Okay. And she is actually heartbroken. We started the coaching call with her saying that she was broken up with. And then once we actually got into it, she wasn't actually broken up with, but it felt like a heartbreak because she didn't feel like she could show interest to this guy. And she waited around for him to make the move. Meanwhile, her heart was just in shambles. And it's things like that where I'm like, no, ladies, do not let that happen. You need to take responsibility for your own heart here. Sure, he shouldn't have strung you along either. But if you're confused, you need to say something. If you like a guy, put yourself out there. So, man, yeah. Okay. Practicals, getting into DMs. I want you to go there too, but my favorite thing is, and I've actually practiced these things, okay, actively when I was single. If you like a guy and you're in conversation with him, whether in person or in a DM, it requires a lot of courage to say this, but you say, I would totally go out with a guy like you, and then just smile at them or, a little smiley emoji. Or you can also say, if you ask me out, I would totally say yes. And just leave it there. The third option you have, okay, is you send a birdie. Now it sounds middle school, but this can actually be very helpful to gauge the situation if it's a news person. You have a wing woman. Your wing woman goes up to that guy and is like, hey, wow, I saw you talking with Kate earlier. And yeah, I feel like you guys just were really hitting it off. I mean, would you ever consider her? Would you ever maybe go on a date with her? And then, he says yes or no or whatever. And she's like, your friend goes, well, I think there's an open door there. I'm pretty sure that if you asked her out, she would definitely say yes. So, and then, your friend does the little dropping of the hanky for you. That's another good way to do it. So all those three things most of those can be done. Not the last one can't really be done over DMs, but all of those work and are a way to clearly show a guy you're interested.
Let me hear from you, JJ, on the guy's side of things. In fact, maybe used as a case study. Did you slide into Kate's DMs first? How did that begin for you guys? What would you say?
Yeah, I wasn't really a DM slider, honestly.
You didn't?
No, I didn't. It just wasn't really my thing. I didn't really have a cool Instagram profile that
he did not, to be honest. He was
jacked. I was not that I was jacked or it wasn't I just had a personal aversion to any kind of self promotion. Maybe out of judgment too, probably more out of an unhealthy place, but I was just going to do me, express myself and not really care. As far as like the pursuit of women and men, and we can talk DMs real quick since we're talking about it. I think it's good. I think you're gonna have a little bit more success. What's hard about DMing women is you and 10 other guys have probably DM'd her, and it's really hard for your character to shine in a DM. So now you kind of have the same looking DM profile as one of these other 10 guys. And you're just kind of lumped in, and it's kind of like applying for a job. Like there's no real way to get your resume to the top of that pile. And what you would hope is that your character, more than anything, how you look, your job, your salary, your house, you would hope that your character is the number one thing, and that doesn't really shine through in a DM always.
Now, don't you think though that's more so for if the girl has a good amount of followers, or
yeah, maybe.
if she's like a private profile or like has 500 followers.
Again,
it's probably a better bet that she doesn't have 10 other DMs sitting in there.
But again, how are you seeing her profile and checking her out
True.
if she's private? So DMing is definitely a good way to do it. I think what you typically see now is you go from some kind of dating app, and the next jump is Instagram and sending memes, and it's kind of like this conversational building relational equity where you're having laughs, sending each other DMs, and kind of like in each other's sphere. Reaching out on Instagram is kind of like, cold calling on LinkedIn. It's maybe just not the highest success rate.
Well, you also don't know for a fact that they're single,
Yeah.
right? But I think the best bet is this is not a plug for me, but I do think that going to me or the Heart of Dating Instagram and going through some of the comment sections, you're going to find some people that are single there because a lot of
there's marriages all the time. On
yes, and we
Instagram
actually
comments
sometimes
and
do
likes.
posts of like, hey, single people, post in the comments about yourself, and then you actually know that person is single.
People literally get married from those all the time, like routinely. Oh yeah, like Australia to California. Had a really good friend in Orange County. Like they're married right now.
They met in the DMs of one of our posts.
They met on the comments. It is like every
Or the
time
comment
those
section.
posts are made, a year or two later, we get the wave of testimonies that like, hey, we're married.
Yeah, let me ask you guys this. How do you play ping pong well, so to speak, in the reciprocity of early texting and...
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a lot of tips when it comes to texting, because this is where the quote dating game, and it shouldn't be a game, but the dating process completely falters. You can go on the best date of your life, and then because of texting, the momentum stops and it may just end entirely. And so actually the beginning stages of texting is a very big make or break situation.
Should we start with like the mindset and then the tactics?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
I would say mindset wise, you got to start at a good foundation, which is number one, take off the cool jacket. Like, hey, Chris, say you and I went, on a date, or we matched and we got set up. Just, work with me here. We both like each other. And all of a sudden, like after a day or two, it took me 7 hours to reply to you. And it was like, how long are you going to take to text me back?
Okay, set up the situation again.
7 hours.
I take 7-8 hours to text you back. And we've been having really good conversation and going back and forth.
Would you text back right away, or would you wait 7 hours?
So my temperament is a little more like hypervigilant sometimes. So, and that can be to a fault. So I would be like, let's go. You texted me, I'm texting right back. Or at least going to tap a reaction or something.
That's great.
Yeah.
But first of all, on the 7 hours, you're probably double checking, and you're maybe...
Why are you calling me out? No. And I'm okay with saying that. Here's why. Just lightheartedly. Sometimes, like the anxiety of that can take over, and you're like, "Crap, what did I say?" And then I'm what did I do wrong? Did I say something? And then the overthinking takes over. That's not good either.
It's a downward spiral of the anxiety that comes in dating.
We got to start at a foundation, which is probably your mindset. You, me, everyone is a human being who sees something that they really like and wants to work out, and then puts all of their fruition into it. So mindset number one is probably just take off the cool jacket, and we got to stop overthinking. So the cool jacket would be like, I'm not playing games. If I'm free, I'm going to reply. If I'm not free, I'm going to reply when I am free. Okay? None of the games. Number two, it's this is dating. I mean, you got to think about your brain and the flood of dopamine and the fantasy. You meet someone exciting, and it's just from there, it's go. We just start daydreaming, fantasizing. They just consume us. Meanwhile, you've been on one FaceTime date. And for the next 2 weeks, you are just, your stomach's in knots, your mind's running circles, and you are just going crazy.
Yeah.
And Kay and I talk about it all the time because sometimes we get frustrated. Like people get engaged probably sooner than they should. They haven't really been as wise as they've been coached to or mentored to. And I'm like, Kate, you have to realize we're working against Mother Nature, and we're working against something that's been proven for centuries to start wars. Have you ever watched the movie Troy? It's one of my favorite ones ever. Think about the dopamine fueled cycle that you're trying to talk to and reason with, right? So that's why mindset beforehand is so important.
I want to add to your mindset. The third part of the mindset here, I think, with before in texting is you have to keep in mind everyone has a different texting style. So that is really important to know. The most extroverted person in real life, when you're with them, might sound like a total cold person that hates you over text. They might be really energized and fun and exciting in real life, but they may lean really dominant. And then the way they text is, periods or sounds good, period, and very lackluster messaging. And it may come off to you as like they're not interested, but that kind of person maybe uses texting more as logistics. That's not really a form of conversation for them, or not an active thing that they don't really. Maybe they talk with people on the phone. Maybe they just are quality time in real life kind of people. But actually texting like that in long paragraphs is going to drain them and make them want to maybe die and crawl into a hole, right? So we have to keep in mind everyone's texting style is so different, and you have to eventually have a conversation with somebody if you're so confused about the way they're texting. So let's talk about some of the texting tips, though. I think JJ said one of them, if you're free and you get a text and you're actively free, you're not at dinner with your friend talking, okay? And then you see it pop up on your phone and you're like, oh, excuse me, I got to go to the bathroom, and then respond then. No, you have a life, prioritize your life. Like that, so if you're just sitting on the couch lounging and like watching a show, and so they text you, but it's been 8 hours or 24 hours since they responded, but you're genuinely not busy, then just reply. Don't do this game of time matching of, oh, well, they were 8 hours and 30 minutes, so I have to be 9 hours at least, or else I look desperate. No, it's fine. Like, just if you're genuinely free, text them back, but also don't overanalyze it. To your point, Chris, like I think that's the second thing is just be yourself unashamedly in these texts. If you use a lot of exclamation points, if you write long texts, you use emojis, be you, okay? But if they don't write back with exclamation points and emojis, I wouldn't say that that's a bad thing at first, unless they started out with all the emojis and exclamation points and then slowly drift into not texting like that anymore, right? And so don't overanalyze it. Like, so what if you complimented them and maybe it was, quote, a little too much? Like, leave it there. Be you. That's fine. I think the downward spiraling gets us into a very bad place.
Would you say that overanalyzing is probably the Achilles heel? The poison?
It absolutely is.
That is all of a sudden. Yeah, that overanalyzing. Like, I kid you not, I have a situation right now. This might be one of the Achilles heel roots of why dating is so challenging. It's you go on one FaceTime date. I kid you not, I have a close friend right now. One FaceTime date. It went amazing. And for the past 2 weeks, they have just been obsessively thinking, going crazy about why has there not been another one scheduled. We're texting periodically. And I kid you not, probably 20 to 40 hours of just dwelling on it. Like, think about all that time of just just fantasizing about them. Because they put what I would probably venture to say is two things. They put so much pressure on that person to validate their self-worth, right? So they've just put so much power.
Yeah.
They've committed so much of their heart and mind to this person, and it's been one FaceTime date, so they've just leached forward of reality. And number two, I think this one a lot. We'd probably be a lot more hesitant to admit, but I'll go ahead and lead here. I played football my whole life. I played in high school. I played in college. I played overseas in Switzerland for a year. I got to play quarterback, which is the best position in all of sports. Got to throw a lot of touchdowns. Super exciting. Had some really thrilling moments. I'm not sure if there's anything that's more thrilling than the first day, week, 2 weeks of getting to know a really attractive dating prospect. Like that is an addictive cycle. We call that the merry-go-round of love that we just hop on. It's that dopamine fueled, however short, burn bright, die young. But at some point, and that's relationships, right? And dating and relationships, at some point, the merry-go-round ends. And we can hop back on it with another person, or we can go across the bridge of oxytocin, commitment, relationship, seeing that they're not a perfect person. And that's really what love is, right? But yeah, I'd say those two things. Number one is just the overthinking and dwelling, the significance we're finding from that other person liking us back. And then two, just it is the ultimate thrill. I mean, if you think about human history and what we glorify, there's just nothing more thrilling than a romantic story.
So true.
Let me ask you guys this, and what you would tell clients of yours. In 2025, is a coffee date acceptable as a first date, or do you jump right to dinner? Like what's right now?
I would never do dinner as a first date because it becomes an interview. So that's my take.
Wait. Say more, Kate. What do you mean?
Would never. So JJ has this great word. Can you talk about romance and the definition? Not the great word, a word as in about romance and what it really is.
Yeah, I can. I mean, what do you think of when you think of romance, Chris?
I mean, I think of it in levels, actually. So I think of it including infatuation. I can live with this person. I can't live without this person. I think about it in that way. I also think about it in levels of deep and abiding, and like a quilt or a tapestry that has layers knit together, and over time they become stronger and stronger through hell and high water. Like I see that as very romantic as well.
Okay, well you actually have a much more comprehensive and probably more accurate depiction. Stereotypically, it was Valentine's Day last weekend. What was a romantic night? A guy barely remembering to get some flowers, booking the nice Cork and Cow restaurant in downtown Franklin. Yeah, we get a babysitter, we go out, and we wine and dine, come back, and we have a wonderful time together as a married couple. The reality of that, it doesn't sound too exciting, especially as a man. I mean, I get it's intimate and there's parts that are unlocked in my heart and in my soul that would make that more inviting. But here's the reality. Romance was actually a 14th century term to describe adventure by men. Basically action and adventure movies, okay? And it was written in a poetic style that was Roman-like, so it was called romantic. But romance is adventure, meaning you are creating new memories. You are sharing a wonderful, glorious experience. And here's the thing. The most romantic dates are the most adventurous dates. And even from the first date to, their 1000th, all I say to guys is use science to your advantage. Bonding is intensified when you're learning a new skill or new information. That's why the idea of going on a putt-putt date and having a competition and friendly bait with ice cream on the line is going to be more exciting and bonding. And not to say a coffee's a bad idea or dinner and drinks is bad. It's not saying what's bad and what's good. It's saying what's maybe the best of some good options. And
I think also you get to know more about a person because especially with dinner, I just typically say don't do that to start because it really ends up feeling like an interview. And the first date, everybody's nervous. You're not necessarily fully yourself, especially if you don't know the person. You're just like, oh my gosh, I don't know this person. I'm nervous. Like so it's kind of a wash. And if it becomes an interview, that's where it's like, nope, this didn't go great. But if you take the person out of their comfort zone and both of you are just like doing an activity together, you can have fun. Yeah. Then you see more of their personality. And by the first date, you're not trying to figure out, is this my husband? Is this my wife? You're just saying, hey, do I know enough information? A, did I enjoy myself? Okay. And B, do I know enough information to see them one more time?
Right.
That's all you're trying to figure out on the first date. The second date, do I know enough information to see them one more time? Like
that
it's
is
step
huge,
by step.
Kate.
Yes. And that's why you don't go on 8-hour dates though. Right? But yes.
Do we get ahead of ourselves then? In other words, let me paint the picture. So we're on date one, wherever that is. And in date one, instead of attuning to a person, collecting information, enjoying their presence, we're actually already thinking about date two on date one. And we sabotage perhaps any authentic source for connection. Is that
Totally.
too deep of a read on that? Am I misreading that, you guys?
No, you're totally
Because
right.
the goal is to go from A to B, not A to Z, especially on first date. And when you go A to Z, you leave reality, okay?
Yes.
And you're assuming 99% about them that you don't even know. You're taking their looks, their first impressions, and then you're assuming the rest of the beautiful puzzle and map about them. And then you're also reducing them down to a puzzle piece to fit into your life. You know, so they're not even a human being worth connecting anymore. It's just, I can't really see you fitting in my
The
little
first
life.
few dates really need to be about more friendship and friendshipping. Like, hey, let me see, do I even like this person on a friend level? Let's do some fun activities.
Yes.
To see if like we get along on a friendship level.
We're talking about why maybe dinner dates aren't the first best option for your first date. Connect that to what I've heard you guys both talk about regarding defining their relationship and giving it 90 days to really just develop some flow. You want to expound upon that and just give some advice around that. And then I want to talk about red flags.
Totally. Do you want me to go into this one, JJ?
Yeah, I mean, he did ask you too. You're the
Yeah.
master.
So, 90 days is good for any person, I think, in the Christian world. Now, in the Christian world, we have an issue of overcommitting too early. In the non-Christian world, they have a issue of not committing at all. So
Sometimes, yeah. Unless you watch Love is Blind.
Put some definition on that, because I actually, you poked a box, and I think there is a call to action to Christians listening right now that can glean from the wisdom that you have on that. I'd like you to, just poke that box.
Yeah. So we are very interested in finding the one. Okay. And we are focused on it. We are so hyper focused. So when you go on a date that is the best date of your life, seemingly, and you both are feeling it, first of all, infatuation is happening. We just talked about it. Dopamine is going off. You are feeling everything and it feels unreal. Okay. And now you go on a second date, a third date. It's the same kind of feelings, and you are sharing from your heart. You are probably emotionally telling your whole testimony, laying everything out on the table, thinking that that is healthy to do in the first few dates with somebody you didn't previously know. It's different if you potentially knew them for years, okay? But I'm talking about, this is like somebody you don't know. You're exposing everything to them. You are basically bonding emotionally. You're emotionally getting naked, spiritually potentially as well. And the only thing you aren't getting naked doing is physically, but you're getting connected and bonded in every other way. You feel like this person deeply knows you. But let's talk about this. The only way you know a person truly is through time. Time is what tells how you can actually, that proves that you actually know someone, okay? You know someone for a month, you've known them for a month. You don't deeply know them just because you've had conversations, because after knowing them comes building trust with them. You can't build trust with somebody in a few weeks' time. And you can't see if you can rely on somebody in just a few weeks' time either. You need to actually have time and space to build that trust, put it to action, and see if they're reliable. But so many times as Christians, we fill in the blanks because we see so many things that are seemingly awesome, or we're feeling all these feelings of dopamine and infatuation, and things are seemingly answered prayers happening before our eyes, but we're not looking at every other area, and we're just assuming this is a trustworthy person. This is somebody that I can rely on. And we're not actually putting any of that to the test. How can you trust this person? Have you given them something that you can trust them with that's hard for you, and actually seen how they've shown up? Because if you've only known them for a month, I guarantee you probably haven't done that yet. Have you shared a need that you have, or have you had a frustration with them? Have you communicated that to see how they show up? If you're in infatuation, you're rarely communicating dissatisfaction, frustrations. You're barely having conflict. So you're not able to really see how you both are showing up in a little bit of rub. And so if somebody gets engaged after 4 months, 6 months, they're fully, almost guaranteed an infatuation. Okay. Like, that is scientifically proven that typically infatuation lasts a minimum of 12 months, sometimes up to 18 months. So if you are getting engaged that quickly, you're fully in infatuation. You don't truly know them. You're probably most likely seeing them with rose-colored glasses, missing red flags. And you probably think that you trust them and can rely on them, but you haven't had enough time to see if you actually can. And that is my issue with Christian dating. And I will stand on a soapbox talking about it because we happen to now be married, and on the other side of it, see a lot of people that rush into marriages and are dealing with the problem and the aftermath of rushing into a marriage. And that can be incredibly painful, devastating, maybe even unfortunately lead to divorce. And nobody ever says, man, I regret just taking a little bit more time to get to know them. But what you do hear is them saying the opposite. I really rushed into it. Like, I wish I took just a few extra months to really get to know them. And so that, that's the big issue. And with pace, with 90 days, it's like, hey, just get to know them for 90 days before you really make that deep commitment of, I want to be in a relationship and move towards engagement. So it's the dating phase of like, hey, I'm not telling every person in the world, but I am going to bring in my core people that know me, that know my tendencies, my mentors. They're going to meet this person. I'm going to bring them around. I'm going to start testing and poking in a few holes. But, I'm not hard launching on Instagram quite yet.
Yeah. But the problem is this. Who actually listens to that?
Some people and some not.
Yeah. And typically until you go through the pain of overcommitting too fast, and the pain of realizing they were pretending and they were somebody who, you didn't think they were. Until then, and that's what wisdom is. Wisdom's two things.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to go on for dating, by the way, because it's not a biblical process. It actually was prostitution 100 years ago. And now we've tried to make it a godly version, right? Mm-hmm. So two things, what wisdom is and why we need it for dating. It's when the rules don't apply, I know the right thing to do. And that's 99% of life, by the way. And then, thank you. I hope so. It's for the word wisdom. And then 2, wisdom's the ability to, without going through the pain of the mistake, to learn a lesson. So if I look at you and say, Chris, trust me, when you get married, don't do this. You say, okay, I'll take your word for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want to be respectful of your time, you guys, and I know we just have a little bit of time left. I want to talk about red flags for a minute, and perhaps from this specific angle, and maybe I'm completely wrong in my hypothesis, but when we say I have red flags about something, because there are legitimate red flags, can that sometimes be code for our unwillingness to tangle up with different people in different life experiences, with different temperaments, and we throw that code, it's a red flag, that gives us the get out of jail free card without having to learn and tangle up with? What are your thoughts on all of that? Because I'd like to hear some actual red flags to be aware of, but I want to tackle that first.
Well, we actually think a red flag and a deal breaker are two different things. And, not everyone thinks that way. So a red flag is a sign of caution. It's like a stoplight, right? So, hey, stop. Take a look around. This is maybe not a great thing. A deal breaker is run, Forrest, run. Okay.
What would have been a red flag in me versus a deal breaker that obviously you probably did not?
There wasn't a deal breaker. Yeah. A red flag for me was your age. Okay. Because I had a lot of preconceived ideas about your age and the fact that you were on Snapchat and these random things. Sorry to call you out. And, these were like, quote, red flags. Right. And so for me, I saw this like, hey, younger guy, like, seemingly more immature because he is on Snapchat. He's younger than me. And, I'm not sure the maturity of his friends. And so that was potentially a red flag, but that's a point of caution. It doesn't mean to run entirely. I mean, I had red flags too, because the reality is we're not perfect people. We all have some kind of flaws. And what JJ and I say is, if you're on your wedding day and you can't look somebody you trust in the eye and say, hey, I know this person's flaws and I'm choosing to accept all of their flaws and marry them still, then that, if you instead say, no, they're perfect. They don't have any flaws. Like, I mean, they're completely perfect. Woo! I am so much more worried for the person that says they are perfect. They have no flaws, because I'm like, you guys, you did not see any of their issues, because we all got something, or there's something in all of us. Okay. We all have little things, and then sometimes the red flags are going to be things like you said, Chris. It's like, hey, we're sometimes looking for it just so that we can like make a little exit plan. But what I like to see with red flags is once you spot one, you stop. You don't just go run the red light. Okay, we're going to stop and take a pause, and we're going to get curious. Okay, this didn't seem great. I saw something. He said something, did something. I don't love this. Didn't expect that. Let me ask a question, get curious without judgment, because I could have this wrong. I could be making a preconceived idea, right? Because that's also very true. I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to get curious. And what comes after that is the most important part with the red flag. Does the person respond with utter defensiveness or complete excuse or deflection, right? Or are they, maybe this is the first time they've heard what you're bringing up and they might be a little shocked, but if they're truly humble, they're going to say, hey, thank you so much for bringing this to my attention. I'd love to really pray about this more and look into it.
Because pause. Think about what you just said right there, and then multiply that times 10,000 scenarios. And that's really what marriage is.
Yeah.
What do you mean, JJ? Yeah, what do you mean? Yeah, break that down.
No, I'm dead serious. Imagine, Chris, we're dating. Sorry to role play so much with you. You're so handsome. But hey, Chris, like I've just noticed, man, like when you say that you're going to do something, especially after you apologize and how you're going to make it right, you don't really always follow up. Like what's going on there? And, and then you basically present the feedback. You walk through it. You talk through it. If you got defensive, you snap. What is magically going to change about you? And a year from now when we're married and I give you feedback about how I didn't appreciate how you spoke at me at dinner that night in front of our friends.
Yeah.
Are you magically going to be a new person a year from now when it comes to receiving feedback and changing and growing? So I would say speaking of red flags, probably a deal breaker red flag as far as, habitual sin addiction, habitual untreated addiction. Those are big ones. Faith, like strong, active, cultivating, currently
faith.
Cultivating.
Actual active.
Right.
Faith.
Another deal breaker would probably be accountability, right? They're humble enough to have someone who's accountable in their life to speak into them. But you can always just think of the opposites of that as far as deal breaker red flags. Like no one can speak into their life. They're not humble. They're not teachable. They're terrible with feedback.
They have habitual sin in their life at the moment.
Very fragile sense of self. That one's also for me pretty concerning because they don't know who they are. So there's a couple as you go down the list.
Those are more the obvious deal breakers, but I think when it comes to a red flag, the biggest thing people are missing out on is they're eliminating people too fast because they're not getting curious and then willing to just stick it through to see like, hey, how do they answer that question? And what did they do? Maybe they answer your question perfectly. Maybe they answer your, feedback really well. And they're like, actually, yes, that's something I'm actually working on, or I'm going to work on that. But then if they don't actually take steps to change it, and that's just lip service because maybe they want to prove something to you in the moment, or they don't want you to leave them, then that's also not great either. And that might turn into a deal breaker, right? And so, I think though we are eliminating people because we're not quite open to the fact that, hey, every human is flawed, including yourself. You're gonna marry a flawed person.
Most importantly, yourself.
Yeah. Yourself.
Well, this is it, and this is sort of one of the meta narratives I've heard you both bring to us today, and it is this, that sort of the level up that we have as disciples of Jesus is, number one, a call to maturity. A call to be transformed the inside out, to steward, to keep and guard the issues of the heart above all that we guard. Like that's such a huge deal, and it's a mandate on our lives. So we have an opportunity to step into maturity in a greater way, you guys. We'll start to land the plane here. What's the biggest lie about dating that needs to die immediately?
What do you think?
Biggest one, I'm kind of trying to reverse engineer the biggest truth, which is, man, the best thing I could tell you is just simply this. Focus on becoming the one, stop focusing on finding the one. and you'll be okay. You'll be fine. You'll be fine whether you're married or not in a year. You'll be fine whether it's 20 or 30 years. I promise you, if you really focus on becoming the one instead of focusing on finding the one, you'll be just fine. And in every single way of your life.
I think the biggest thing I would say is love is forged and not found. And that's JP Pokluda, not me. But love is forged, not found. And this is also JP. He's taught us a lot and is one of our good friends. But the one is the one because you choose for them to be the one.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are just looking for somebody to magically appear, and not magically. It's the God appears the person to them. But love is also that choice, and it takes forging. It's not just you find this person on aisle 7 at Whole Foods and it becomes perfect.
Well, regardless of your theology, actually, if you're the most charismatic person and you think God is going to speak and give you a dream, or you're the most pragmatic evangelical, Calvinist, guess what? You're both making a choice at the end of the day.
So good.
What I hear you saying is this. Success in this realm is predicated first upon a teachable spirit, a desire to honor the Lord, to do this well, to be a people of character and integrity. Is there anything else that you'd want to say to add to that, just as we land this plane today, to say, listen, you guys, make this mindset shift regarding dating as a whole, and things will be different?
I would say make dating more about serving than serving them versus serving yourself. I think so much of the dating process, we are there with our checklist looking at how they're going to be fitting my life. And yeah, you don't want to just marry someone just to marry them, but what can you do in your dating life to serve that person? And how can you communicate clearly? How can you go on a first date, you figure out this is not going to be a match for you. Whoopsie, now I'm on this date for another 90 minutes. Well, how can you turn that instead of a failure to say, maybe this is an awesome opportunity to just get curious with somebody totally different from me. This does not have to go to a second date, but how can I honor this person as a man or woman of God, as a child of God? I think we are missing that so in the dating world today. We're just thinking about ourselves so much, and we need to start thinking about the other person. We really do. How can we serve them? How can we love them well? How can we get curious and treat each person with kindness and dignity and love?
Yeah. Amen.
So good. Anything else, you guys? I'm really thankful that you've taken time to hang out with me for this relationship series. There's so much more we could hop into, but I'm really thankful.
Oh, we're thankful for you, Chris.
We're thankful, man. We hope it encourages, and we hope the Spirit just latches on to anything that we've said and ignore the rest.
Yeah.
Just attribute it to our flesh and ignorance and JJ,
Sounds good. Well, you guys stay with me. I'm going to tell you guys how to connect with Kait, JJ, Heart of Dating, and the whole cavalcade of resources they have. So I'll be right back in a minute. But you guys, thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Chris. You're awesome.